Hello, this is TeachSmith, and I really want to share with you the insights that I've gained by really thinking through, teaching and practicing Language Paper 1. So this is a walkthrough or an explanation of how to approach the questions in Language Paper 1. Of course, follow your teacher's instructions first. This is about further insight. So top tip 1, the writer makes choices. That's what this is all about, the writer making choices in the extract. Prose and position. What do I mean by this? So prose, word choices, technique choices, and structure, the position of events, the position of where things happen, what you get introduced to. This is true of language and literature. Okay, this is true of both the extract in language and the literature text as well. Top tip 2. Inference, or reading between the lines, is the most important skill. It didn't used to be on the old specification, but it is now. Read between the lines. What's really going on? What do I mean by that? I will tell you, or I will show you as well. Top tip 3, something that I didn't think of before, okay, the titles. Now, Rosabelle is tired from work, but perhaps she's also tired of life, and she's kind of tired in a more, tired of who she is, etc., and how her life is going. I'm just going to put this slide up briefly, because if you're hoping for an English language revision video, I will link that at the top and probably at the end as well, for more general advice on how to revise English language. So remember, English language paper 1, you identify 4 things, then there's language analysis, structure analysis, the evaluation, then the descriptive or narrative writing. So I'm really not going to go through question 1 very much. Again, this is a Rosabelle paper. I'll put a link to download the resources in the description. But remember, just keep it simple. No analysis, no inference. Keep it really simple, make 4 simple statements. So, question 2. How does a writer use language here to describe Rosabelle's bus journey home? You can include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language and features, and techniques and sentence forms. So the first thing to remember is this is about a concrete choice. So what do I mean by this? So the bus journey home, that's what we need to focus on. Okay? The focus is there. We must always refer to the focus. So this is what I mean by referring to that focus. Now, the keenest amongst you will notice that I've crossed out or I've crossed through sentence forms. If you are someone who's very, very confident on this, please go ahead. However, I think it's often a bit of a red herring. It can be very, very difficult to do. And you can definitely get full marks without referring to sentence forms. Okay? Now, the quotations I've highlighted are turning the dullness to opal and silver, and the jeweller's shops seen through this were fairy palaces. What is going on here? Rosabelle sees the beauty of the jeweller's shops through the light striking the misty, rain-soaked panes, creating that kind of corona of light, creating that kind of unusual effect, making them look incredibly beautiful. Now this is a metaphor, of course. Now if you leave it there, you will get some decent marks. However, let's push that a little bit. Why are they fairy palaces? Not just because they're beautiful, but because they are unobtainable. Because this is not the life that she will lead. Those places are closed to her. There's as much chance of her being accepted into those jeweler shops as there is as her going to a fairy palace. It's a dream, it's a fantasy, it's unobtainable. Now secondly, there was a sickening smell of warm humanity. It seemed to be oozing out of everybody in the bus. And again, that sibilance and that sensory language really emphasizes how deeply unpleasant and uncomfortable it is on that bus. Now again, the sibilance and the sensory language showing how unpleasant it is will get you some marks. However, how can we push this? Well again, it's about the contrast. Outside of the bus, looking at the fairy palaces or jewelry shops, those are the places that Rosabelle can never go to because of her working class existence. However, because of her existence, she is trapped in this bus. She is trapped in this kind of life that's dirty and smelly and cramped, almost like being treated almost like an animal. I would, in the same paragraph, link the other part of the sibilance, which is sitting so still, staring, which again links to the idea of people being dehumanized, people having no choice, people almost trying to escape their situation by being absent-minded, by being emotionless, by being numb. That inference is how you get the marks. don't just say what is physically being described, say what it suggests about Rosabel's life or what it suggests about the lives of those around her. What is the author trying to convey about Rosabel's life, and what is the purpose of describing the bus journey? Question 3, structure. Now it's all about focus. It says it in the question. What the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning of the source. How and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops. Again, I've left out the third bullet point. Again, if there are other structural features that you're very confident about, that's fine, but I just want to focus on these 2 bullet points. So your keywords are focus, change focus, flashback, develop, intensify, and transform. How can you use these words? Well, from the mark scheme, this is a section of text, and I just want to pick out a few things for you. At the beginning, the writer focuses on. Why does he focus on the private thoughts of Rosabel? Her social situation, her working class situation is immediately established. Then a flashback, and the focus narrows to the girl with beautiful red hair. Why? Because that's the source of her anger, that's the source of her frustration. It's a different sort of language that you need to use for question 3. Instead of simile, metaphor, alliterations, sibilant, etc., you need to use these words instead. Okay, the evaluation question. It's a big old question, it's worth 20 marks, but there are strategies to deal with it. Now, I want to break down how to do this. The first thing to recognise is that there is going to be 2 parts to the question, 2 parts to the statement. In this case, the red-haired girl has many advantages in life, and the second part, Rosabel is right to be angry. Now, you must always mostly agree. There usually will be something in there to disagree with. If you're someone that's not a student who is very, very confident, perhaps just go with the agreeing part. You can still get lots and lots of marks, near full marks, if you always agree. However, if you are someone who is a very capable student, you will find something in there to disagree with. So, the red-haired girl has many advantages in life. I've just taken this one quotation. There's plenty to say about just this one quotation. There are others to talk about, but you can talk about the white skin. Why? Because it was very difficult to have pale white skin, perfect white skin, because most working class people would have rougher skin. Now also, this ribbon shot through with gold, very, very expensive, so talk about the value of that. And then they've been to Paris last week. Okay, back in those times, not a simple thing to do, so there's a lot to talk about in terms of that. It seems as though one part of the statement is always going to be slightly easier and more concrete to discuss. So there's concrete evidence that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life. However, Rosabel is right to be angry. It's more of an abstract thing. Okay, it's more of a judgment, a value judgment, and more about inference again. So because it's about inference, I've pulled out several quotations to explain what I mean. Rosabel was almost in despair. These 2 people, the red-haired girl and Harry, are making her rush around and treating her like a servant. However, the second quotation I think is the most important. She loves this hat. Rosabel loves this hat. She covets it, she wants it, she loves it, but it's something she can never have. This links back to the jewellery shops like fairy palaces. This is something so beautiful, so wonderful, so amazing, but she knows that she will never have it. Not only does she know that, but she's forced to handle it and she's forced to put it on. And that's where she feels humiliated. Now, this is what I mean by inference. It doesn't say she loves the hat or Rosabel loves the hat, and it doesn't say Rosabel was humiliated. But you have to infer that. You infer that by the beautiful way she describes the hat. Large, soft, with a great curled feather and a black velvet rose. And again, the red-haired girl says to Rosabel, "It suits you beautifully." They both know that Rosabel can never have this hat. They both know that she'll never own anything like this. And that's why Rosabel has a sudden, ridiculous feeling of anger. Because it's humiliation. It's shame. Rosabel knows she can never own something like this. And that's what I mean by inference. And that's what I mean by being more abstract. Now again, mention of course that large and soft and great and curled are all positive adjectives, black and velvet more adjectives, and there's sudden ridiculous feeling, sudden ridiculous, those negative adjectives, all used to show the admiration for the hat and the feeling of humiliation and shame. Now, describe the journey by bus as suggested by this picture, question 5. I have actually chosen my own picture for question 5, partly to avoid copyright, but more I actually think this picture is perhaps a little bit more interesting, or if you've done the Rosabelle paper before, you can choose this image instead. Now, again, I'm going to put a link to my creative writing video, but essentially you need to drop into a detail, shift, zoom in, zoom out, and you'll notice the similarities between this and the structure question. I'm just going to flick forward for a moment. So the second part of question 5 on the Rosabelle paper is write a story about two people from very different backgrounds. Now I'm just going to put down this plan as well, and this plan is also worth thinking about. The drop, shift, zoom in, zoom out thing is a bit too abstract for you. Describe it this way. The reason I've flicked forward is because, or now flicked back, is because you can combine the two tasks very easily, and you're allowed to do that as long as you write something based on one or both of the tasks. So imagine these two are from different backgrounds. Imagine the man who is bald, holding his head in his hands, is because he has a very tough manual job and he's exhausted. Imagine the man sitting behind him has a more white collar job, an office job, maybe very highly paid. Maybe one of them snoring, maybe the bald man is snoring, and the younger man has a problem with this, which is of course a bit ridiculous, but it just allows for a situation to develop. I sincerely hope this video has been useful. This has been Teach Smith. Please like and subscribe if it has been helpful, and please look at some of my other videos advertised on this screen.